Hey, welcome back to the Windows 8 Jumpstart for IT professionals. My name's Joey Snow.
I'm Stephen Rose.
And we're back once again for more Windows 8 IT Pro fun and games.
We are. We're going to talk about access to Windows, not the Microsoft Access product. So that's next. And after this, we have a break.
We're going to have a meal break, a shortened meal break, because we're going to get caught up. We did get a little bit behind, so we're going to get caught up there. So a short meal break.
Access Anywhere productivity with Windows 8. We'll talk about Windows 8, Windows 8 apps, and we'll end with recovery and security.
So that's where we are. We're already halfway through, and we're just now getting started in on access to Windows. And the ability really for me to have Windows anywhere that I'm at and use magically showing the USB key.
Ooh. Windows to go.
Windows to go.
What is Windows to go?
Do I pull up to a drive-through window and say,
No, except the problem then in the UK it'd be Windows takeaway.
Oh, okay.
So we don't want that to happen.
All right, okay.
Windows to go has been something that people have been asking for a long time, which is the ability to run a complete OS from an external driver stick. Let's talk a little bit about it. I also want to correct some misnomers. I get a lot of emails, and at its core, Windows to go allows you through, first of all, it's a Windows Enterprise feature. It's not available on Windows 8 or Windows 8 Pro. It is a Windows Enterprise feature. Licensing, if you have software assurance volume licensing, if you have a volume license, it is a one-to-one license. So if you license a user, you have a license to build a Windows to go stick. Windows to go is a full PC. First thing that IT pros need to understand about Windows to go is this is not a USB key. This is a device, and it should be treated and managed as one. When I am logged into this Windows to go key, I have BitLocker, direct access, branch cache, all the same features I have on my PC, I have available via Windows to go. If you hire 100 temporary workers, you say, hi, here's your PC. Once they are logged into Windows to go, they have no access to their local drives and to data, which means if it is an infected machine, if there is viruses or malware, it will not affect the Windows to go stick. If this is domain joined, it will still require them to go ahead and put the stick in, log in, do all the things they would normally have to do with a PC. One of the biggest questions that I get a lot is, well, why don't I just use ImageX and copy over Windows 8 to this stick? They go, well, it works. I'm able to boot up off of it, and that's true, but two things. Number one, you've just used a Windows 8 license to build a stick, which means if you use the same media that you used on your PC, you're no longer compliant. You'd have to have two licenses to do it. But the most important part is the first time you plug this in, if you were to build it that way, is it would bond with that first machine and you would not be able to pull it out and use it on other machines.
Okay.
The key to Windows to go is I can put this stick in tons of different PCs. I can put it in, do what I need to do, remove it, go to a kiosk, go to a PC at a hotel. I can go home and put this in my home PC, come back to work the next day, and it's going to come with me. And we're going to talk a little bit about later, by taking Windows to go along with folder redirection and UEV, you really have that do it in one place, have it across all of your machines, whether they're Windows to go, a tablet, desktop, etc.
One of the things that really excites me about Windows to go is I've spent a lot of time in my career in call centers. Mm-hmm. So you can only imagine this scenario where people, you don't have an assigned desk. You don't have a place that you sit down at, right? And machines constantly having to be rebuilt, et cetera, et cetera. I can totally see a scenario where somebody comes in, they check out their USB key, the system's there, everything that they need. You mentioned it before with some of the other tools that we have in the Microsoft desktop optimization
you can use DISM
pack,
and we can
all
blow it out
things
that way,
and moving it around. So enterprise feature. Let's go over a couple of things I want to go to on the slide. And so the first thing, obviously, this is kind of the situation you talked about. Leveraging folder redirection. I can boot from my hard drive. I've got my app. So if I'm sitting at work, right?
And you get
now I'm getting ready to go out on a business trip, right? So I check out a Windows to go drive. I'm at home or I'm in an airplane with some access. I've logged in using my Windows to go stick, and then maybe I'm home. Maybe I'm at a hotel somewhere, and I just log in again using Windows to go. Secure we secure it with BitLocker, managed BitLocker, right? Everything that you've got there. One of the things you mentioned when you were just talking about this is the ability, Windows to go can have direct access.
Yeah. Branch cache, BitLocker, domain join. Again, don't think of it as a USB drive. Think of it as a PC, and that's what's really important. Is it is your computer. It is a device, a managed device within your environment. The first question though I get a lot is, how do I build a Windows to Go key? And we'll show that in a few minutes.
Sure.
And how that is. But I'd actually like to do a Windows to Go demo right now. I think it's a great thing to show right out of the gate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you've got a Windows to Go stick there?
I have the Windows to Go stick. So what I'd like to do is we'll go to the over the shoulder. This is, notice, Redmond. This is my main PC. It's logged in, it's ready to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the Windows to Go stick, and then I'm going to reboot. And it's important that you notice my start screen here, because I'm going to go from Windows 8 to Windows 8, but you're going to see the difference as I start to do that. So I'm going to restart. We'll give that a moment.
Quick question was asked here. When we build this Windows to Go media, how do we install apps on it?
That's the great thing is you could either have it pre-done if you're using DISM or deployment tools, or you do it the same way that you would want to, is you could just go to the store and do it, or sideload them through a script or GPO. You have a wide variety of ways to go ahead and set that up.
It's just a PC.
It's just a PC, same way you install apps on a PC.
Absolutely critical. Yeah, same way you would do it at home.
Yeah, my favorite is somebody has this really great Ultrabook. I love sending to them is, look, I have the lightest PC of all, and I show them the USB stick. So you'll notice a different start screen. You'll notice it just says Steven. It's not my domain login. I'm going to type in my password. It's going to say welcome, and there we go. So I'm not internet connected, but we could see the apps here as I start to do that, and I'm ready to go. Now the nice thing is if I'm working with this, if I pull this USB stick,
don't do it.
You're going to notice that the whole system locks up. I can't do anything. I have 60 seconds to put this back. If I'm running a video, the video will freeze, and as soon as I put it back in, it'll pick up right where I left off. So I put it back in, and we'll notice here, see, now I can move my cursor again. I can open up applications. See, keep the USB drive in. Otherwise, your machine will completely shut down. It could crash. All right, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I know that, but I'm back where I left off. That's one of those key security features. You're like, well, what if it gets pulled out, or what if somebody just grabs it? Right there, that machine becomes useless if somebody pulls that drive out. So that becomes really kind of critical as we start to do that. Building it, and I know we'll get into this a little bit later, but one of my favorite things that you'll notice is, we'll see when I go into my files, I still have all of that functionality. I have all those apps. I can sideload, do whatever it is I want to do, launch my apps, move through anything that I want, and then when I'm done, I simply can. And you want to make sure that you fully shut it down. So when you're ready to be done, go to Power, go to Shut Down, and I'll show you again how my background and everything will change when I go from here. So I'm going to completely shut it down. And you want to do this because if you do pull it early, there is a chance to potentially lose the data or get damaged, and then we'll reboot. So that's now completely shut down. I pull that out. I'm going to relaunch my PC again to show you that there was no black magic or witchcraft or anything involved.
So while that's starting up, Stephen, great question here that we have on our question forums. I'm trying to determine the advantages of using Windows to Go technology versus RDP solutions.
It's going to be faster. It's going to be lighter. You don't need to have an internet connection to be able to do that. Right there alone is going to be really, really critical. Because RDP is slow, and you have people working inside of a window. This really gives them their full PC. They can also save files locally. They don't have to start doing things over that. We can choose what they have. They have access to the apps. If it's a touch machine, touch first, all that, all the local ports. Plus the great thing is if they plug in peripherals, right then and there, they're going to work. And I know through, if we're using VDI, we do support local USB redirect and touch and all that. But this really takes it to a whole nother level because, again, it's going to be a faster, better, smoother experience that they can control and use it just like it.
And the reality is here is, unlike VDI and some of the remote desktop stuff, you don't have to have that back-end server infrastructure as far as being able to support remote, VDI and some of those things. That doesn't need to be in play. You can enable your users to start working remotely and being able to leverage these devices just by having this key. And we'll talk about some of the system requirements here coming up on.
So you can see here's my regular machines just to show you there's no trickery. There's all the apps that I have inside there, all the regular stuff. So that's pretty cool. So that's a little very cool Windows to Go demonstration. I think one of the most powerful, really exciting new features in Windows 8.
So in order to use or leverage Windows 8, there's a couple of things that we need to have, and we'll click over to the requirements slide here, Stephen. I think we've talked about the use cases, so let's...
Yep, so we'll go past that. And the consistent experience.
Yeah, kind of why you want to travel light, bring your own PC kind of thing. That's another great scenario,
yeah,
right?
to bring your own people that come in with consumer devices. That the great thing is if they come in with a consumer grade machine, Windows 7, Windows 8, etc., they're going to be able to plug this in. They're going to be able to leverage it and use it on any Intel-based platform machine.
Right.
And that's important to point out that RT will not be supporting this. But if they've got Windows 7 Home or Windows 8 Home, they can come in and they have that full enterprise experience ready to go. It's very fast and easy to set up, and it really enables sort of free seating. Anybody be able to sit anywhere. Managed, unmanaged. Takes an unmanaged PC and it turns it into a managed PC, which is great.
Music to my ears,
Yeah.
because the
And
worst
secure.
thing in an enterprise is an unmanaged device. I hate to say
Absolutely.
that, but that's how it is.
And it is a full fidelity desktop experience. It's everything you would get from having Windows 8 installed on a machine you're going to get within that. We, again, drive encryption, BitLocker, and BitLocker to go. It does prevent accidental data leakage because by doing this, it requires a BitLocker password and then a domain password within that. And it can be managed with our existing infrastructure. We don't need anything special to manage this. We're ready to go right out of the box. Add direct access to that for connection anywhere, and add Microsoft Desktop Virtualization. We've really created something very, very exciting and very, very easy to manage. The few things to remember, I'll let you take this one on kind of what's different from using a machine with Windows to Go than a standard Windows 8 machine.
Now, and this is one of the key points, and this is a security point here. The internal disks of whatever device that you plug in, they're offline by default.
Yeah, you're only leveraging the hardware.
Yeah, absolutely. So those disks, so data leakage, right?
Right.
Because those disks are already offline, can't bring them in. If you secure down this USB key, that it disables the user to be able to administratively enable those disks to copy data. You're secured down on that station.
Sure. And if
they're
you've
offline by
locked it down
default.
where they cannot, move things to external drives or things like that, it really puts you in a much safer position.
Absolutely. Disabled hibernate
Yeah.
by default.
Yeah.
Right? That's pretty key.
Because it would become a security risk if you were able to hibernate the machine and bring it right out in that status.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
TPM, though, is not used. So that is something to be aware that the TPM module is not used as part of Windows to Go.
So how do we use BitLocker?
That's a good question. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Windows Store is also disabled by default, but you can turn that on. And that's really for productivity reasons. And the push button reset is not available because that would allow somebody to bypass some of the security
and the
features.
reality is it's really not needed in the fact that, I mean, it's on a USB to go stick and it can just be re-imaged.
Yep.
Is this, Windows to Go, one of the questions asked, is this like virtualization?
No, it's not, because it's not a virtualized machine. It is, again, I'm going to go back to that point that I said before. This is a device, and you are managing it like a device. This should be treated no different than this. These are the same. Left is right, right is left. These are the same. These are managed the same. There is no difference between this Windows 8 PC and this one from a management, security, how we manage, how we take care of devices. And that's what's important. If you can do it on a Windows 8 Intel-based PC, you can do it in Windows to Go minus those exceptions that we talked about. So start thinking about this differently. This is not some sort of USB key, or we're not remoting into something. It's all happening right here within the hardware.
Requirements for Windows to Go.
Yeah.
That's not just any old regular USB key.
It is not. What's exciting about these drives, at least I think it's exciting, is that these are, although USB 3, they're actually mini SSDs. They're meant and built for high volume read and write. So what I'd like to do here for a second is I want to point out a really critical piece of information. So let me go ahead and duplicate up my screen here. And I'm going to take us to the Springboard series for Windows 8. And I'm going to take us to the Windows to Go technical overview. This is a great page. Differences between Windows to Go, roaming, preparing, hardware drives. But this right here, is there a way to draw on this? Do I draw on this? How does that work? I haven't drawn.
I don't know.
How do I draw on this, John?
I don't know how you draw.
Okay.
Apparently you can't draw.
I guess I can't.
There's a button, I'm sure.
I'll highlight that in blue, but it says you need to use certified drives. Now, we'll work with a regular USB 3 drive, but you're not guaranteed to have the same level of, what's the word I'm looking for? performance. That's what I'm looking for. Same level of performance that you would have with a standard PC. So by using either the Kingston Data Traveler Ultimate, which is this device that I've been using here, the Super Talent Express RC8 for Windows to Go, which you have one of those.
I do.
And now there is a new one, the Western Digital My Passport Enterprise. And if I click this link, it will take me to it. And here, $119 for 500 gigs. So that's
like a portable hard drive there.
That's exactly what it is.
Stick. Yeah.
It is a portable hard drive that you can use for Windows to Go. If we take a look at the Super Talon, there it is. That's what it looks like. We can see that it's a 270 read, 240 write megabyte per second. It is incredibly fast, and it is, as it says right here, it is a mini SSD. And if we take a look at the Kingston, and we expect a lot more drives to be enabled in the near future for that. So that's right here, and that's really sort of the critical aspect.
So we've covered the fact that you've got to have a specific device. This is not just any old USB drive.
Correct.
There's a way to build it. Don't just use ImageX. There's a couple other requirements just want to kind of touch on really quickly. Obviously available at the enterprise SKU only.
Correct. Yeah, this is not a pro feature, and it's not something that's going to change. It is really meant for enterprises to use to manage and deploy this out.
And then a couple other small pieces here on the slide.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and share out. Yeah, you got a Windows Keep Keys. Share that bad boy out.
Hang on. Oh, I'm extending. Hang on. I got to switch that part out. Hang on.
Just restart the presentation.
Yeah, hang on. Let's do that and bring that up, and there we go. Hey, how about that?
Yeah.
Let me go back one.
So go back one. And
That's coming.
you keep going backwards.
I know. Here it comes. There it is. So
Somebody teach Stephen how to drive.
There we go.
To build the USB to go stick, it needs to be required or should be plugged into a USB 3, which...
You have to have USB 3, but it's recommended. So we'll work with a regular USB 3.
Okay.
But it is recommended that you use these drives for the best experience and for people to really go, wow, this is as great as a regular machine.
Right.
It'll meet
you
those
can
requirements.
run it on a system with just a USB 2 drive, but again, as Stephen mentioned, USB 3.
As it says right here, it is capable, the machine needs to be capable of USB boot. That has to be enabled. You will find on some machines, if they have the fast BIOS, that you may have to disable that so that you can pick that or do that. USB 2, it will work with USB 2, but USB 3, it is optimized for USB 3 and it can't run off a hub. It's got to be directly plugged in. 1 gig or faster matching processor, 2 gigs of memory, DirectX 9. It'll work on Windows 7 and Windows 8 machines. Windows RT devices, as we said, are not supported, and Mac is not a supported scenario. So that's kind of a critical thing. So why don't you show us how to build one of these sticks and how we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have my Super Talent 50 gig USB drive, and it is plugged into a computer sitting just off to my left here. Just like everything else in Windows, I don't know, where's Windows to go? We'll just type it.
Well, hang on, let's switch over to your machine. 'Cause this is
Settings.
a really important part. So let's go ahead. Windows to go is the PSR of Windows 8. I used to love to show problem step recorder. You go to Windows 7, type in PSR, it would show people, wow, that's great, I didn't even know it existed. Windows 8, if you're on the enterprise SKU, you have to type in Windows to go. Remember, if you don't want your users building this, just block it via App Blocker.
Yep, absolutely. We'll show you how to do that in just a little bit.
Yep.
So here we go. How to create a workspace. If I'm not quite sure about the hardware requirements, I can always click the link, get all the information I have here from our help file. You'll see here, there's my device. Yep. You'll see it's a 51.2 gig device. Now, the next thing that we have to have is we have to have the install media. We need to have an image.
Yep.
Now, I have actually mounted the Windows 8 install ISO file, the evaluation ISO file onto my system here.
Great.
I could also simply just copy the install.wim to a folder.
Yeah, absolutely. You could do it either way.
So we'll go ahead
Or just point it, or even point at an unstuffed ISO.
Yeah.
Just use WinZip, unstuff an ISO, point it, you're good too.
Absolutely.
Any one of those will work.
We'll go ahead and use the Windows 8 Enterprise Evaluation. I can choose whether or not to use BitLocker and set my BitLocker password. In this case,
we'll skip it because it takes
I'm going to
some
skip it just because I like to live a little bit wild and crazy.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yeah, it's going to tell you, hey, we're going to reformat this whole thing. We're going to build it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm not going to reformat that because that is actually my
it's done. It's ready
using
to go.
device.
It'll take a little bit of time. Be aware, it takes somewhere between 10 minutes up to 15, depending on your machine and stuff. Because you're basically putting in that. You're basically doing the same thing. You're installing a full OS onto it, going through it. But once you're done, you're ready to go. You're ready to rock and roll at that point.
But wait.
But wait, there's more.
There's more. There's another way to do this.
All right, show me.
I happen to be a fan of PowerShell. I happen to be a big fan of PowerShell. Now, as you will see here on my screen, this is my favorite PowerShell tool of choice, the ISE.
Yeah.
Why? Because I forget things a lot.
Okay.
It happens with age.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well, I also need to know my commands, right? The other cool thing is the fact that I can have a script, which you can see here. I've got an entire script in my script window. I've got access to a PowerShell command line here, and then I can, as I mentioned, I'm forgetful. I can go in and find all of the different commandlets that I have here. So to do this, I've got a simple PowerShell script here that basically all it does is it goes out and it asks to find the disks that are greater than 20 gigabyte,
Right.
which is a requirement around USB to go.
Yep.
Then I'm going to go ahead and clear the disk out, and I'm going to format it, right? Create a new partition, get it all ready for Windows to go. Set the partition. 90% of this script is just getting that USB device ready for what's going to happen next.
Right.
Where the action really comes in are these lines here. DISM, and the DISM tool, we talked about that, right? We talked about the DISM tool as a deployment tool. DISM apply image, you give it the name of the image file. Where is the WIM file?
Yep.
Right? Tell it which index or which location within that WIM file. Now, for those of you who aren't kind of aware, a WIM file is a single instance store where we create and we keep all of our install images. So you'll notice.
What does WIM stand for?
Windows Imaging
Media.
Media.
Yep.
You'll notice that inside of a WIM, you can actually have multiple versions of the same operating system, right? So you can have an enterprise SKU, you can have the pro SKU inside of there, and it uses single instance storage, meaning that if I've got 32 copies of StephenRose.dll,
Right.
I'm only going to store one copy of the
But it
StephenRose.dll.
is important to understand that if you're building a Windows to-go stick, you are only licensed to build it with Windows Enterprise, and it has to be the
absolutely.
Windows Enterprise SKU. So don't go, well, maybe I could put Windows Pro or Windows
No.
Consumer on it. It's Windows Enterprise building
Correct.
Windows Enterprise images. We're just showing faster ways to do that. So,
Right.
And you've got a really good blog post on this where you
Yep.
kind of go through this step by step. So
Absolutely.
we can
And you want
show
to
that
take a
little
look
later, too.
at, notice here in the script it says /index1. So just as you mentioned, we can only build this with Enterprise.
Right.
I happen to know that index number 1 is my Enterprise SKU inside of this WIM file. So I've already got that. Then we're going to simply do an apply out to the W drive, which is actually the drive that I assigned this USB to go stick.
Right.
Then the next thing that we need to do is we need to use the BCD boot tool.
Yep.
Right? I'm far too familiar with this tool, having deployed a bunch of systems that build using this new tool. It's awesome. This allows us to be able to have the boot menu and to boot to everything. And then I'm going to do DISM image, apply the san_policy XML, so that we can go ahead and disable all of the drives so that it can't see any of those local drives.
Right.
That's that san_policy. It's a simple script. I got 3 lines that are essentially building this. Now, granted, I'm doing some more stuff with the disk and
Sure.
creating partitions, and I'm formatting and everything, but this is just a great example of how we can actually do this. I can see myself having a bunch of machines set up with a bunch of USB to go sticks with a PowerShell script.
Absolutely.
And just automating
Yeah, and
the
you can
heck
buy
out
the
of the creation of
duplicators where
this.
you can put in 15, 20 at a time and push that out. That's the big thing, is it doesn't have to be a one at a time. We can build out a lot of these as we start to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of a quick little look-see or a demo of Windows to Go,
Right.
how we build it, how we use it. Love the fact that you actually showed that there
Yep.
with your device there. Mine's plugged into my system over there. If we jump back over to our slides here,
Right.
we've got some additional ways
Yep.
of accessing Windows.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this in a second. First of all, are there any good questions? And we want to thank all the guys who are helping us and gals who are answering questions. Average A and Michael, and we have some really great people that are doing fantastic jobs in the chat.
Way to go,
queues.
Avi. Nice work, buddy.
So, any good questions before we move on?
You know, kind of standard questions that we hear. I have a 32 gigabyte USB Traveler USB 3.0 device. It's not working.
Yeah, I know these drives are expensive, but they are expensive for a reason. They're not regular USB 3. They are these mini SSDs. They're going to provide performance, and that's what's really important. If someone is going to be doing this, we want it to be the same experience that they're going to have on a PC, and that's why we have these drives that are certified. They're going to cost you more than $100 per drive. You may be able to find some deals in that $80, $90 range. I know also a little bit more expensive overseas. Be aware, we have a lot more drives coming out post-launch. That cost will come down. It will get easier to do, but there are reasons for us. We're not letting it work on any old drive because if it's Windows isn't moving, if it's not fast and fluid, as we talked about, then it's not a good experience for the end user, and that's really critical.
I want to address something that's also here in the Q&A that gets asked. Every time I go to run an application, I use the search. Is that expected behavior? It's just how I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
This is how I start things. I got in the habit with Windows 7 of just doing that. And now, even moving forward, when I go back to Windows 7 PCs that I work on inside of virtual environments and stuff, I almost get paralyzed because I'm just so used to it. And there's no right way or wrong way. You like to use the charms.
Right. And here's another thing to keep in mind is with Windows 8, we have so many great applications. I've already downloaded 30, 40 apps that I'm going to have, and I'm sure a lot more as we go on. You're going to have a lot more applications because there's some great free apps, things that you've had on your Windows 7 machines, and you're not going to want this continuously long screen with every single thing you have on your machine. So you're going to go, hey, I don't use the whatever app, XYZ app. I don't use Netflix every day. I only use it when I travel. I'm going to shove it in the back when I want it. I'm just going to type in Netflix on that start screen. The periodic table, don't use very often, no need. But again, from that start screen, just typing in periodic table or searching for it is going to make it a lot easier to do.
You have it right up front and center just to make people think you're smart.
Because constantly I keep going, NaCl, it's table salt. I need to go back and go check. I like knowing also when new ones show up. That becomes pretty important to me. So, and I like things like uridium and mercuroconium.
It's always important.
Absolutely.
The other thing too, folks, just so you know, I have on my
arsenic, aluminum, selenium. I'm sorry, it's a Tom Lehrer moment. Moving right ahead.
Moving right along. Also, I use groups a lot. Right, so I use both. It's just for me, I'm just really fast with the search thing.
And it's great to have all these different options, and that's one of the things that Windows 8 brings to us. So
one last thing. People are asking for this PowerShell script, so I will go ahead and post it up and get it tweetable, and maybe we can link to it in some of your other resources. So we'll get this PowerShell script out there to move on. So now I think I've covered all the Q&A.
BYOD. No, embracing BYOD. Let's go back to our deck and talk about embracing bring your own device. The flexible work style. The flexible work style is really kind of at the core of this. People are bringing their own devices, whether they're Windows devices, non-Windows devices, etc. How do we look to manage it, and how do we have to have a great experience, whether we're using VDI, whether we're remoting in because we're using an iOS or Android device, if we have multiple Windows devices, how do we make sure what is there? And that's really good. We want to make sure we have that great user experience, the centralized management, the apps. Office 365 brings some really great things to that. SharePoint, SkyDrive Pro becomes a really, really good part of this, and we really want to make this a good experience. So VDI, I really love VDI in Windows 8 because it brings 3 or 4 really, really key things. Number one, it brings touch on a local device. So if you're logged into a VDI session, you're going to be able to use the 10 points of touch, use your fingers, do all that, which is great. Number 2, supports 3D graphics. That's part of Remote FX and the great features that it brings to it. So you can get that full multimedia experience. Playing videos, doing things like that. But, and one of my personal favorites is it is local USB and link support, which means if you are remoted in, you can actually plug in a local headset, you can talk, you can do Skype, you can do all of that through your touch device, remoting into that, and I think that really becomes a really great and critical feature.
This is really key, folks, because I hear a lot of people fighting, a lot of IT folks fighting with upper management in IT around BYOD. Obviously, there's no secret. I use this joke all the time whenever I do presentations and sessions. IT guys are the kings of no. Because we always say no first. And then we'll actually support it later.
Or unless you're Russian, then they would say niet.
Yeah. I'm getting my language lessons from Stephen Rose.
Non, if they're in French.
And Biggin and in Smollett.
Yes, low, if it's Hebrew. We could keep doing this all day. We won't.
And we won't. So, embracing this trend of this, bringing your own device consumerization kind of thing, really kind of no matter what type of device it really is, and being able to support it. And VDI allows us to do this. Why? Because my desktop, it's virtual. Right? It runs back on a back-end server. I connect in through a web page. I'll tell you what, guys, I've got a demo of this, and you talked about this.
And I think one of the critical things to understand is This is built in. We're not paying money for a lot of extra software. And somebody said to me, well, you know what? I don't have that kind of money. We're a smaller business. This really enables smaller businesses when their users are working from home, working remotely, using non-Windows devices to be able to have a great, rich experience without having to spend anything more than the cost of Server 2012 and Windows 8.
Yeah.
I think that's a really critical piece.
Now, in this scenario, and I want to make it clear for everybody who's sitting out there at home watching this. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the things that I did on the back end of the server, getting everything ready to support VDI and everything. But to be honest with you, it used to be like a 70, 80-page document to get set up on VDI. Now it's like a 5-click wizard. It's so much simpler, so much easier under Windows Server 2012. So there's more information about that. You can also check out MicrosoftVirtualAcademy.com. We've got a great course. You can go take a look at my buddy Rick Claus. Shout out to Mr. Green Hat there. He did a jumpstart. They did some VDI stuff, so you can check it out. But let me jump in. I'm actually going to connect. What I've got here is I've got my system here. I've got a system in the corner. I've got a webcam. It's kind of cool. I'm going to show you how I'm redirecting a webcam plugged into the system that I have here, talking to my servers over there. So basically what I've done is I've actually got a certificate. I've not done the full-on VDI trusted certificates thing. I'm just using a self-signed certificate here. So I'm going to go ahead and connect my VDI infrastructure. And I'll log in as Paul here because Paul is the user I want to use. Now you'll notice I've got two methods of accessing this here. I've got quick VMs, so I've got a VDI VM session, or I've got sessions.
Okay.
Right. So we're going to use a VM here, and I'm going to go ahead and connect in. And notice, I don't want to go too fast here. Allow the remote computer access the following resources on my computer, so I can enable through my VDI session access to my own drives here, so I can store data on the disks here, or other supported devices. And in this case, I've got a webcam. I'm going to show you that we're going to use this webcam. So I'm going to connect to Paul's session here, and it's going to the standard RDP messages that we see here. Are you sure? Yeah. Are you really sure it's secure? Do you really want to do this? And so you'll see here, first of all, full fidelity type of scenario, right? You'll see that, I mean, I've got this fluid UI, my desktop here. You know what? Let's prove it even more. I love the Connect videos.
Yeah, it's nice, and considering how, look at that.
And I'm connected. Look, I'm connected through a remote desktop, and I'm looking at high definition quality video.
Make it full screen.
That we've got here. All right, we'll go full screen. Yeah, we'll go full screen even more.
Very pretty.
Right? Kind of cool. All right,
yes.
So have we all seen enough of the Connect video?
By the way, if somebody can tell me what piece of music, because it's done by Vitamin Z, the original band and the song, I will find something cool for them. So throw that up. Let me know, moderators, what song, if they need to find that ad and do it, but who is the original artist and what is the title of that song? I will find a cool prize for that person.
I obviously don't qualify.
No, you don't. But you probably know, don't you?
Well, yes.
Okay.
Here's some three-dimensional graphic stuff being done here. This, again, I'm using this on a desktop that's connected to a virtual machine that's running in the background here. All right? So, yeah, that's kind of cool. So some 3D stuff there. All right, let's get to this. I want to show off my camera.
All right, let's see it.
All right, so I just simply hit the little device button up here in my RDP connection.
Yeah.
I want it to connect to my camera. Now, my camera's plugged into my machine. It's not plugged in on the server on the other end of the room.
Right.
Right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click OK there.
By the way, I've done this nicely with a camera and missile launcher. Then I can actually shoot missiles at people, which is kind of fun.
All right, so we're just going to, it takes just a second to get the camera all connected up and everything here through the RDP connection. Yeah, we've got it. We said that's good. And come on, camera. Come on.
It's thinking.
It's thinking about it. I'm actually shortly going to be getting this asking me. It sees the camera. Oh, no.
Ah, the joys of live television.
The joys of live television, right? Let's go, camera. See, I actually, I don't know, you can't even see it. I have the camera. This is really bad because I was going to show you all the guys that sit at the back of the room and make fun of us the entire time while we're doing this jumpstart here. I've got some camera redirection.
We'll come back to that one.
Yeah, we'll come
back.
back.
But it does work, and it works nicely. And we've seen the remote video. We've seen how nice and smooth that is. We've seen the local USB direct, which is great. And the key is that we've really made VDI simplified. So I'm going to go back to a slide, and I'll give you a minute to play with that. So let's go to our slides here. So with VDI Simplify, what's important is that we are providing secure access to Windows from many connected devices, which, desktops, laptops, non-Windows based devices. It is providing that flexibility to access their desktops from, connected devices and from whatever somebody chooses to do. It is an alternative desktop delivery model that is giving users secure access. VDI is powered by Windows Server 2012 and Remote Desktop Services, RDS, which is providing a single platform to deliver that hosted desktop. It's using Remote FX, which we've talked about. So we can have session-based desktops, which can provide a user to applications or data. We can do pooled VMs, which is really great to be able to put that together. So I want to talk about some of the benefits here as we start to do that. And that really is that we're getting these great, rich multimedia experiences, that we have true USB and multi-touch remoting and a consistently rich performance. It's fair share, which is wonderful. We're not having to invest in large infrastructures. DC wins. Where's My Mind by the Pixies, very nicely. All right, well, we'll figure out one of you guys and we'll get something for you at the end. So moderators, make sure we get an email address for those two folks and we'll make sure we'll do something. User disk, and also it really helps to lower our storage costs dramatically as we start to do this. We've made it a lot easier to set up. It is an inbox management console, and it does intelligently patch. Joey, how much easier is it to set up VDI now as it has been in the past?
Yeah, so I mentioned that before. It used to be like an 80, 90-page document, and now literally it's 5 or 6 clicks through a wizard. Very simple to do. You just simply go into the Add Roles wizard in Windows Server 2012, and you choose Remote Desktop Services, you choose VDI, and you just point to where your image, where your base image is going to be, or your base VM is going to be, and then off it goes. Really, really simple. So simple, even I can do it.
There you go.
So that is, kind of a quick look. You saw that full fidelity experience. I could change some things. I can change my desktop background, disconnect, reconnect. The background's going to be the same.
How about bandwidth, though? What if somebody's saying, look, I'm remote, I'm using, I know we have dramatically reduced the amount of bandwidth and usage, but what are we looking at for a user? Could they do this if they have a paid mobile connection, if they're using a metered connection?
Some of the things like remote applications, I would say, that might be okay. When you start getting into the full fidelity desktop thing, you really, it's kind of you need to decide what the experience is going to be like for your users.
But it'll work decently on a slow connection?
Sure, absolutely, because you're just passing screen refreshes, keyboard, mouse presses, those kinds of things.
Exactly
right, exactly there.
Okay.
So we've got Windows to Go. Enables me to take my USB key and plug it in my computer.
Over there.
No, I just stole it.
Okay.
It's mine now.
Yours now.
That's what you get for
we
leaving
talked
it there.
about VDI.
We talked about VDI, the fact that I have a virtual infrastructure there, can connect to device, full fidelity experience, get that high HD video that we've got there. Now, I love this. Love this next feature.
Yes, Client Hypervisor, or as I like to call it, Clipervisor.
Clipervisor.
Yes, Client Hypervisor, also known as Clipervisor. You're welcome to use that term. I like it very much.
Okay, is that an approved term from Stephen
It
Rose?
is not, but I like Clipervisor, and we're going to use it.
Okay, fair enough to me.
Now you're very familiar with Hypervisor because that's something that's been in server now for a while, and it is absolutely. Ask any server geek; it is the backbone and bane of their existence. They love them some Hypervisor.
We love ourselves some Hypervisor, and now I have it on my desktop machine. In my client operating system.
So I should just run everything in Client Hyper-V. I should make everybody run it and never put an OS on a machine again, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, you probably really
Client Hypervisor.
It's got its uses.
Exactly, and this is something we get a lot, which is who should use it. Number one, if you are a developer, absolutely you should be developing. You should put your environment in Client Hypervisor and do it. Trainers, if you are running training classrooms, things like that. If you are testing software, things along that line. There are some great times to use Client Hypervisor and do this, but it is not the replacement and the end-all be-all for what we're doing. So why don't you walk us a little bit through Client Hypervisor?
All right, so here, let's do this. I've got it on my system.
Awesome.
So all these demos that I'm kind of running here from my systems that I've connected to, they're actually virtual machines that are running inside of Windows 7.
Right.
So you'll see I'm actually connected here, and look, it's Windows 8. I said Windows 7. I'm fired. Okay. That's all right. So this is my Windows 8 machine. You see here, I'm logged in. Yay! All right, it's Windows 8. And in here, I have Hyper-V Manager. And just to show there's no trickery here, I'm just going to, and yes, I'm using the search because that's how I do things. It makes my life faster. And you'll see here, I've got a domain controller. So I'm running Windows Server operating system here. We're going to use that here in just a little bit.
Okay.
So I don't need it. I've got my config manager system.
Now we can use 32 or
PC.
64-bit in this, correct?
So we use 64-bit OSs.
Okay.
Right? As far as server's concerned.
Right.
Right? So
But
within that
for
hypervisor.
client, we can put in a 32
Yes.
or 64. We, multiple forms of storage. We can also
Yes.
use any 64-bit device as long as it's got SLAT. Sleep and hibernate is supported.
Yes.
Okay.
And that second level address translation of that SLAT.
Yeah.
Key requirement.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of systems out there that you think you could run Hyper-V on. It won't work without that second level address translation.
We support 3D audio, multimedia, supports BitLocker.
Yep,
Within
absolutely.
it, which is great. We can transfer VMs between client and server. That's a huge thing.
Love that feature.
And and the great thing is we also can support large VM configurations with this.
Yes. The one thing that's important to note, this is not a dumbed down Hyper-V.
No. It's the full.
You have
support
a full
secure boot, the
set
whole
of
thing.
features. Absolutely. You've got a virtual switch. You know, see, I can go into my virtual switch manager, and now I'm really kind of getting behind the scenes of how I've got all of this set up and everything. But you'll see that I created multiple networks, can create internal networks, external networks, all of this stuff. The same virtual switch stuff that we have in there, virtual SAN manager that we have there. All of the things that you're used to seeing within Hyper-V are in Hyper-V on the client. Right? So if you're used to managing Hyper-V on your servers and you need to get a couple machines, maybe you just want to do some test work while you're on the road,
right.
Just throw it on your machine. It supports external storage, right? USB storage, eSATA, that kind of stuff, so that the disks run faster, that whole USB 3 thing, which is actually how I run this previously to putting it on the devices here. Off of a USB external hard drive is how I was actually running through and testing all these images. So not a dumbed down hypervisor. This is Hyper-V that we're used to seeing with Hyper-V. So wrapping up, man, we've done a lot of anywhere stuff. We talk about Windows to Go. We talk about VDI, remote desktop.
I want to kind of summarize though, because it's which one to use where. So I want to bring up this slide.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a really good slide. So let's go ahead and bring that up. And it really is understanding which one which. So VM-based VDI versus session-based. And very quickly, what is the difference between a VM-based VDI and a session-based VDI, Joey?
So when you're talking about VM-based, that means you have the whole desktop, okay? And you can make changes to that entire desktop environment. In other words, I can change my background image, and that's going to follow because that's within the entire desktop. In session-based VDI, what you typically only have is access to a couple of applications. Right? And that's, I don't have control of the entire PC. In other words, I couldn't go and run a bunch of dev testing and stuff because I've only got access to those applications that my administrators enabled me through that session.
But it is also great if we have an application, that may have some compatibility issues. That becomes a way to be able to do
absolutely.
that.
It's a great way to provide those apps.
Absolutely. So going back to our summary, so if we want it to work across multiple PCs, VM-based VDI and Windows to Go, awesome. Always connected with a limited line of business applications, as you said, a session-based VDI. If we want always connected, we want to multitask, we want to personalize, then we want that VM-based VDI.
Yes.
Or we could use, the bring your own device or contractors, Windows to Go, VM-based VDI and session are all going to be great. There really should be a little dot there at the end for Windows to Go.
Yep.
Requires business compliance. We should look at VDM with that, or session-based VDI. And if it's a developer or IT pro, we want to developer test locally. Client hypervisor, Windows to Go becomes really, really great. Really great, folks.
Hey, everybody, I want to make sure that you're paying attention to the polling questions that I believe are they right there? I think they're right. Hang on. Oh, yeah, there they are. They're over there.
There you go.
So keep an eye on those polls. We really want to hear from everybody. We want to get your feedback. We keep posting a new one every so and again. Frank's back there quickly nodding his head saying I'm posting it now, and then it gives me the thumbs up, so you've got a new poll. So check that out there. Also a shout out to our moderators. Keep asking your questions. We're taking a look at those. We have a meal break coming up.
Hang on. I just also want to give a shout out because lots of members of the crew are on, so thank you guys. Shell is there. I see T-Mac just joined us. Scott's on, so lots of great folks. Our Getty Lee fan, Michael Bender, Andrew Bettany, a lot of our MCT folks are watching, so we're keeping an eye on in between breaks we're going back and forth and trying to message out with you. So thanks, and we'll try to mention more people a little bit later. So thank you.
So I think it's meal break time, so we're going to take, gentlemen,
About 40 minutes?
30 minutes, 40 minutes? 30. They were debating. They
were
did rock,
debating.
scissors, paper.
All right.
Apparently Frank won. It's 30 minutes. We'll see you in 30 minutes. Thanks for joining us on the Windows 8 for IT Pros Jumpstart.